Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's the 21st of November, 2024. What a time to be alive. This evening will be, let's classify it as a preliminary conversation, and then I'll have another chat next week, probably Monday or Tuesday night, and then I'll wait and see on the timing. But what I probably will do is do a private conversation, a bit of a Q&A, where we can have a discussion about all the different things that are really relevant, that are extremely difficult to speak about on the book and on the tube. I would say Twitter as well, but I don't really have much of a following whatnot on Twitter yet, as I have been playing a different game and a different strategy and doing my utmost not to get too caught up in the absolute riot that is now the town square upon all the different subjects. Over the past period of time, I've spoken about rolling events. We've also spoken about the psychological fallout, also the splitting of worlds component, which we'll touch a little bit on this evening. But what I really wanted to get across to you is where we're actually at in the game. And the right language to use is just some of the components that I think aren't really being spoken about that have got us to this stage, which is rather fantastic, depending upon what lens and what perspective you're actually looking at it. It's just unfortunate that there seems to be quite a few folks out there across the full spectrum of the world that never returned from COVID, or never returned from some of the other, let's say, rabbit hole conversations, which is fine. I suppose, they're still pushing the bar in their direction or whatnot, but it really is now game time for those that are paying attention and understanding the significance of particularly the next couple of years. Very early on in the piece in 2020, I, and there are a couple of others as well, that come more from the space of being experiences, that been talking about change over years. Some of us have some different lenses or language that you use, but if you move all of that aside, we're essentially saying the same thing. So here goes. Change over years, 2020 to 2030. Some of you have probably heard about Agenda 2020, Agenda 21, and then you've also got Agenda 2030, which, as you can see right now, it has completely fallen off the script of its own timing. And that there has its essence back in, we can say 2016, when the T-Man got in there. It derailed a lot of stuff. I was paying attention at that stage, and so were quite a lot of others who are a bit longer in the tooth within this game. And if you weren't watching that and you come to the party, let's say in 2020, there's certain details and you can say significant situations that developed that would change one's perspective very quickly. Part of the changeover years is 2020 to 2024. Now, depending upon how you would look at it, you would somehow see the last 4 years is, rather dim and glim and really bad. And, the story goes on and on and on and on. But as we stand today, we're not in lockdown. We're not in a lot of different things that were scheduled to happen. And when it comes to this here, which isn't it's a difficult conversation to have, but ultimately everybody was given a choice, even though those choices had certain social agreements attached to them, whether that be work or money or those types of things, well, that there really was the situation if you want to see it from that lens of truth in its entirety. But if you still want to see it from purely just as an adversary component, well, you're going to get caught there. But also understanding that that wasn't just snap of the fingers and then rolled out in 2020. It had been going through the world for a long period of time, shaped into legislation, getting the right people in right positions, and so on and so forth. But this here conversation tonight isn't necessarily about that. What it is about what 2025 is, and 2025 is a choice point or choice points, and it is going to come down to the individual. Yeah, you and I as individuals, as we individuate from the social contracts and the social agreements that we have all co-signed to, willingly or unwillingly. We've all been snoozing at the wheel, haven't we? We've all been more worried about entertainment and a lot of things that don't necessarily matter. And with 2025 being the choice point, it's going to be more important than ever before to know that the game that you're in and get it clear on your position, how diligently you are working the problem or your problem, and running a strategy to continually be viable, as so many things. We could use the word collapse. It seems to be the word being used out there a lot. But I would like to use the terminology of things being seen for exactly as they are. And yeah, one part of it is domination and control. But the other part of it is that we've been held back. And do we want to really stand in our own authority as sovereigns? And I don't mean sovereign as in writing some type of template document and saying fuck you to the government. I mean sovereign in its true identity, being responsible and accountable for one's thoughts, one's words, one's intent, and one's action in accordance to how one would see that or come into their own with their own constitution, with, let's say, the divine, the monad, the higher self, and no longer playing in the adversarial games of the smoky mirror. If the smoky mirror is the first time you've heard about that, you can go check that out in, I believe, Toltec, with the 4 agreements would be a good start. It has different terminologies. I've spoken about that stuff before, but that'll give you a allegorical and symbolic lens upon what that actually is, the fog that we all kind of dance in. And it should be an exciting time, and it gives some let's game out something, because it's very relevant. It has a lot of people excited, but me personally, I don't think a lot of people actually understand the mechanics of how that would actually come into effect. And let's utilize Robert Kennedy Jr., for instance, saying a lot of the right things. Awesome. He's also had many conversations with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jack Cruz. If that name is the first time you've heard about that man, go and check out what he is talking about and some of the other things that he has spoken about, particularly with building out the conversation upon where we're actually at today from a health perspective, and some of the nefarious actors and their operations to be able to get it to this stage. Because it's all very good and well just to throw rofs and rocks and cabal this and blah 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 at everything, but if you're not really understanding the mechanisms and the strategy and the operations that have been played out, you're going to get played. And by you knowing that, it's also going to give you an elevation, even in your own tactics, upon how you will actually go about executing with the game it is that you're playing. So here goes back to Robert Kennedy Jr. The health side of things. There seems to be a consensus out there, and I'm not speaking out of my ass. I actually spent some time yesterday to go through all the different language components of it, that out of a click of a finger, Fauci and all the rest of these people, that's going to be the end of them. Pharmaceuticals just going to change and yada, 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 yada. It's all going to happen quick. I would love to tell you that, yeah, that's going to happen in the space of about 2 weeks with the stroking of a pen. But unfortunately, that there is not reality. The reality of it is that there is a massive amount of the world operations in relation to health and pharmaceuticals and the corporations that run them that are going to have to go through some type of, we can say, shadow war. And you got a taste of this if you were paying attention in 2016 when Trump got elected. And even though he was making very big and important decisions, you had stop blocks in the way that weren't doing what they were told or what they were actually employed to do. That there is essentially going to be the story. But at that same time too, that there is where these social contracts and social agreements really begin to break apart, because it's there for all eyes to see. And you and I, as sovereign beings, do we actually step in and fill the power vacuum with what would be regarded as true knowledge and being able to work the problem, giving power back to the mavericks? Or do we want to get caught up in the minutiae of the town square of continually just yelling and screaming and getting absolutely nowhere, which you can see has been a huge part of the activist, researcher, truther, and content creator community over the past period of time. I'm not knocking it. It's what it is. And it's all been rather positive with the way I look at it, because it's all been pushing the bar and elevating conversations. For some of the big podcasters, particularly over the last 6 months, to begin to speak about what was once the term just conspiracy theory, and have guests on that actually are experiences and have some subject matter expertise to be able to build out that information. That's exciting. I can give myself a pat on the back. I spoke about that a couple of years ago. And I give huge props to the likes of Sean Ryan and a few others as well that are pushing the bar with people who are experiencers and have subject matter expertise. What is unfortunate is that there are content creators and influencers that have built themselves in that direction off a frame of being an activist or a researcher, that somehow right now that a lot more deeper discussions and truths are actually coming out. They don't want to take that new information on board, because what would that do? Well, their step back would be not that, would it? And this goes with one thing, and I've spoken about this a few times, and some of the hate that comes my way is rather interesting, but seems to be a consensus out there that there's no such thing as viruses. Okay, I've read all of the stuff, but until you really get into some of the deeper and darker projects and them going back and understand where biotech really is, and the mapping of our genome and a lot of other components, you're going to understand that, hang on a moment, there's an advanced game that's being played that we don't actually have the information or the knowledge banks front side to be able to articulate exactly what it is. And we'll still use certain information that is pushed out for a content mapping exercise, both from a redirect and misdirect operation, and influencers and content creators will grab certain parts of that. And in a reality now where perception rules the game in an attention based economy, which is, let's say, the socials for that matter, and the driving of conversations, a lot of things are very convoluted, and that's good. I don't think there's too much to be be a negasaurus about it, I should say. But it does cloud the next, I suppose, chapter of time, as a lot more will begin to come out, and how one actually perceives or receives it is going to be the testament of a time. You're going to be able to see it for exactly as it is, and pay attention as it builds out, or the way that you need it to be presented to you to validate a programmed belief of perception that you have spoken about it as if it is law and fact. This is another massive component of the psychological fallout. And you can see that across the social media has been for a period of time. Hence my kind of step back. And to be honest with you, my game is about to start. I'm not new to all of this. Like, I won't go into detail this evening, maybe another time, but we are essentially in prophesized times now. And can you get out of you needing to be the one and all the grandiosity that goes with that, and needing an adversary to get you to action through a reaction? Or are you going to be able to be in your center, see things from a very particular vantage point, and give yourself the opportunity for the higher wisdom and intellect to come in to play a new game in a new domain of knowing? Big stuff, because it's across the social board. Yeah. Education, politics, even the way that we would go about construction, logistics, work. I'm not sure if anyone's seen this, but I highly recommend that you go and check it out. Elon Musk was playing a video game, I think it was last week. I believe it was a Twitch stream. I'm not sure. He's got it posted on his X page from a few days ago. But it was a conversation we was having with some gamers online, just about where Optimus is at, which is his AI, all the robots and driverless cars and all the rest of those components. I can share this with you today. I can't tell you the company. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but there has been certain corporations that are massive in scope, okay? This one in particular that I can 100% tell you in truth, yeah, that they had their systems implemented, not perfected at that time, but implemented 2016, 2017, and waiting for the right financial situation that was a changeover of technology for them to implement their AI systems to go from 90,000 employees down to about 25. And already at that time, they were still paying administration, accountants, operations managers, logistics people. They were still paying them, even though that the let's say AI and other systems were working. But what they were also doing is that they were learning. Very, very big, very big. Because let's have a look at government, for instance. Do we still need government? Unfortunately, we do. Okay, because we need to go through an education process and some accountability, always down to particularly a local area or whatnot. And we're going to go through that experience over a period of time, not just through they're a pedophile, they're corrupt, and these types of things. But let's move that aside for the moment. Let's be very practical in our analysis upon looking at this from this now moment. What are the best systems to solve the problems that have presented themselves from a fresh new slate? That fresh new slate isn't going to be a clicking of a finger. Okay, it is going to be a period of time. That's why this social contract and social agreement breakdown, even between you and I and many different components, because the technology is there. What is not there is our sense of dreaming a new dream. The idea that in Australia that there can be and I'm not knocking forklift drivers, I'm just using this as an example, so if I can call you jets, yeah, that a forklift driver is earning $70 an hour on a union site and all the rest of these components. Okay, great. But what we understand in truth, not everybody, but when you really look at it, is that there has been a mechanism or a usurper on this world for a long period of time. In Australia, it's been, let's say, the mid-70s, that has put certain things into play to roll through governments, not matter if it's Labor or Liberal or those components, to devalue our dollar. But also, you know, how the fuck is in Australia we even paying for power? You know, there's so many different components to that, which is a much bigger conversation they're not going to get into tonight. I suppose I'm just utilizing that as a reference point to build on upon the conversation that we're having. But there is a revisioning and getting a consensus to bring as many people together. What I'm about to say isn't liked out there all that much, but it is true that there has been psychological operations in play to map out conversations and map out groups and formulate those groups depending upon psychological profiling and their frames of reference. That is why, if you were to step back for a moment, I've spoken about this before, it's just an easy one, okay? It's not because I'm hanging shit on them. I'm a live and let live guy. That's why you see that there's a common denominator with, let's say, within the truther circles, with flat earth, Tartaria, and simulation. Okay? There's a certain profile of somebody that would continually go in that direction. And then other side conversations will continually get thrown on top of that. So it becomes extremely difficult to say anything to that, or even inside of it comes essentially a closed group. Yeah. And then it becomes also very adversarial. We can throw it on the other side as well with some of the LGBTQ kind of woke side of things, where that has its origin point in emotional intelligence and political correctness language, and we could almost say pseudo psychology that come out in the mid 80s and late 80s that then formulated itself through universities, um, through NGOs, and even into the social studies. It's why the spectrum of mental health just went huge, and pharmaceuticals actually paid into that also. But the language and the frames around it is that all the rest of these different side conversations get convoluted in top of it, that it becomes very difficult to have that type of conversation. It's like that across the social order has been for a period of time, this whole divide and conquer. It's very easy to just, oh yeah, it's all divide and conquer. But it, in a fifth generational warfare setting, it is very different. And when you understand that LifeLog was Facebook, and understand what that really was with DARPA and the mechanisms upon psychic driving. So with me saying that, these past 4 years, you could almost say has been a bit of theatre. And I don't mean it as in like a joking manner too, of just get you popcorn, but it has been theatre. So within Australia, I'll give respect to some people that have been very strong with their voice, particularly when it comes to the voice, getting that out there. I can tell you, I have the proof. I said it was a nothing burger to begin with. But what it was a mapping exercise to be able to see where the populace was really at. We've got one at the moment with this misinformation and disinformation bill. Well, part of that as well is to be able to map that out to see actually what the consensus is. That's why there's such an emphasis on it with kids, okay, not being able to utilize social media before 16. And then the scary word comes out with digital ID. And that gets blown out of proportion as well. But unfortunately, and a lot of folks don't like to hear this, but we are going to have some type of form of digital identification. You already have it with your Medicare card, your bank card, and all the rest of these components. So if it was to come into going into a new system with system changeover, yeah, who and what is going to be in control and what that system really is. I'm honest with you, I don't 100% know that. I don't think too many people do, but that's essentially what the choice points are over this next period of time. And being really aware upon the game and position that you're at is to be able to go and play. But with that also, there is a mass amount of opportunity through all of this breaking apart. Now, I hope you're a little bit like me, where you're a bit of a maverick and you're a bit exhausted and tired upon how life's going, and wouldn't mind going, you know what, I wouldn't mind actually having a little bit of a step back and being honest with myself, maybe upskilling all those components and having the opportunity to redo some of the decisions that I made earlier on in my piece and actually have a new crack at it, meaning life, work, job, those types of components. And that there is the excitement of the times, as much as it is going to be absolutely cray-cray. Like, look, which just happened since the election. To be honest with you, I did not think it was going to go as smoothly like that. I thought it was going to be contested. It still is kind of contested, but as you know now, the if you haven't heard this, well, this is what's come out, is that the go button to boost the votes, that button didn't work. So hence why we got this result. But as you're seeing with inside the NATO nations, particularly the UK, and let's be really honest, it isn't about nation states. Yeah, it isn't about America, it isn't about Russia, it isn't about Ukraine. It's a much bigger authority that is now front side. So our language needs to change with that too. And what are the games that are afoot that essentially need to play themselves out. You can see that and have a look at which kind of direction it's going to go. Well, it ends up being relatively exciting and positive, but at the same time too, there's some interesting times ahead. And which game are you going to play? Is it just going to be still the adversarial games of they did this, therefore I need to expose them? And I suppose, and once again, I'm not being an asshole when I say this, okay? Just giving you a profile. Between 2016 and 2020, you could say it was the rise of the truther, okay? And a lot of that came from the Q operations. A lot of it is Q mythology, okay? But if you were following it and actually understood that it was military intelligence and signals and a whole range of different components, but what it did, very similar to what I was talking before with Flat Earth, because it was the same type of operation, it was a whole bunch of information that got people in there, and it was set up in almost like a video game type of situation to push the bar, but also allow other people to come in and to build upon it. So when 2020 came around, it was hoo-ha. I thought it was fantastic, as much as there was some crazy shit that went on, but the Great Awakening took place. But what it did do is it brought the activists, the researchers, the experiencers, all into the same type of arena, even though there was a lot of yelling and screaming, and there still is. But, we've been dumbed down through our education. We don't even really know how to have a qualifying debate anymore to qualify exactly what we're saying, or I suppose the language I'm using at the moment, because there's a lot of quantum nonsense out there, is can you qualify your quantum, or are you just flapping gums as a content creator? And I suppose all of that's been relevant, and what it has done is it has broken the back of the narrative control of the media and even the politicians. It's almost like a blind man trying to pick out his favorite porno at the moment, trying to gain control of the narrative. It's just off the hook. And once again, full respect to the likes of Patrick Bet-David, Rogan. There's been even Russell Brand. And even when I say that, folks are probably going to send me an email of, don't you know that it's like, you need to get your head out of a rabbit hole and see things for exactly as they are. There is a much bigger game going on, and forget about what you think. What do you know? Because if you don't know entirely, what is it that you are exactly feeding? Can you see someone in the now moment that are making good choices and that are building upon with that? Or are you going to keep on shitting on everybody and still making more smoke and shit with inside your mirror, which seems to be a game that everybody has forgotten, particularly a lot of those that proclaim, I do shadow work, but if you were to have a look at their last 10 posts, it tells a different story. Moving on. Because what you are really seeing is that the conversation has pivoted and changed a lot. It is the alternative media now that not just growing, but to have and be engaged for an hour or two in a conversation on a subject. Let's be honest, okay? Let's have a laugh. We used to go to class sometimes for an hour. I'd be 5 minutes and I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. And then even sometimes when you're having a conversation with somebody, topics change and go all over the place, almost in an interval of 10, 15 minutes. There's not really that much that we sit down and get into the minutiae and actually build out upon a subject matter or actually tell the tale. That has changed dramatically, particularly over the last year. and the quality of those conversations is building. So the idea of the government coming out, like happened last week, government finally coming out and confirming that UAPs exist and stuff. Okay, great, awesome. Yeah, within the alternative media, that's already a silent truth. That's already known, right? Depending upon which way you lean to it and all the rest of it, well, there's many different associated stories with that. But if you move all of the stories out of the way, there is more and more building upon that there is something else that is going on that ties back into our ancient times, that our history isn't actually our history. Exciting conversations to be developed, I think, rather than sitting around a table yelling and screaming who is right and who is wrong, because the truth is there, but are we actually ready for that? And the answer to that is no, unfortunately. There are some of, let's say, events or rolling events that are in the pipes that have to play themselves out that will get more and more people to a choice point of accepting what actually needs to be done to move forward very quickly. One of the hindrances of that, and for those that are really interested, go and check out what happened in Germany with the denazification program that was run by the US and the Brits. What you'll find very interesting with that, you'd go, hang on a moment, certain elements of this seems like it's been playing out over the last 4 to 5 years. How interesting is this? In a different kind of set, but elements to that have been playing. So what would that suggest? Well, that would suggest that there is something else that is actually going on that is more benevolent, that actually understands the game to get more and more people into a consensus in a consensus area to be actually working the problems as they present. And unfortunately, we still want to be playing around with the past. And I know everyone's wanting their pound of flesh of that of what's happened, but what was once is no more. From a centered state of seeing the problem and moving in a completely different direction, they're the more difficult conversations that we're going to need to be had. And that's what I'm actually really excited about, excited. And, the amount of growth that I have seen across the board, probably since 2017, to be quite honest, a bit more excited. I was a bit of a doomer and gloomer there for a bit. But even in 2020, and for myself too, I've had to have a sit with myself sometimes and just understand that, okay, there's people are coming into their own at their own speed, some at an absolutely rapid pace, and there's some that still need to be playing the adversarial game, whether it's the Covical, whether it's the chemtrails, whether it's the this or whether it's the that. Okay, great. But let's be very real. They're already silent truths right now. And if we were to take a stock upon what actually really are the pressing issues that we see right now, those reclamation moments aren't really essentially at the top of a priority, because if they were, we'd be bogged down of the momentum. What I would almost suggest is number one and number two priority has to do with energy and technology. The whole Green New Deal thing has essentially fucked the social fabric of the West. Yeah. It's driven prices through the roof. Solar, wind, and all the rest of these components don't necessarily work. And there is other technology which is out there. We can call it 0 point or whatever it is, alien tech really, or even Tesla tech. But there's a transition that we need to go through with that. So are we actually really able to look at things from a more to 2 to 4 year kind of transitional phase? Or is it just wanting to live in Disneyland about it? because there is a societal shift that has been underway, and a lot of the ways that we have been going about it are really obsolete. And a new domain of knowing is also a new domain of knowledge. And for that to take place, there needs to be a little bit of a breaking, because unfortunately, which is probably, it's one of our best qualities on this planet. When the chips are down, the cream rises to the top. Yeah. Seen it how many times across the world when things are really fucked, legends appear. I love those stories. Yeah. And that's what brings out the best in us, because it doesn't matter about our politics, our religion, our creed, even our frames of reference. What brings us together is that we're united in working the problem and coming up with new solutions. That's you and I, yeah, not the whole problem reaction solution that the let's call them social engineers have put us in place. But there is a psychological component to this and frames of reference, even within our own intellectual bandwidth, to be able to comprehend that. And I suppose that's the growing up period that we all get to choose to play in our own time, because the step back's going to be massive. And to be honest with you, I am grateful to what was one of my mentors, so to speak, indirect mentor as well. Because I thought it would be good for myself to start a podcast a few years ago. And I did. I started to get down that path and was having a chat with him. He's like, if you do that, you're going to get bogged down in that. And what you're wanting to play in, where your greatest attribute, skill set, and what you're capable of isn't actually in that. And I had to sit with that and being like, you're right. You're right. Hence why, whether you're new to me this evening or not, I've been, kind of a little bit rogue, dropping things and all the rest of it over the past few years. I am an experiencer, and am a connected individual as well. So I've dropped some stuff out there, done my part, so to speak, but here is the game time. And there's a lot of information of people that have got subject matter expertise as experiences, that their voices aren't being heard at the moment, because there's been a almost mythological version put over the top of it that has been regurgitated through the activists, researchers, and truther communities, or even the content creators, which is fine. It's still pushing the bar. But do you really want to know, or do you want your version of it validated? And that there is a serious question that we all could do well in at least putting on the table at the moment. Because if we're looking at the world purely to have our programs, beliefs and perceptions validated, going to miss the opportunities that actually arise, because you're not going to be able to have the capacity to see it as it is and what that there is actually about. Because there's still almost a consensus out there that it's all doom and gloom, and there is no such thing as a benevolent force that is setting things up. And there is a big game going on backside, front side, and a lot of you can say the invisible board is really in play. We will all get to compare notes at some stage. I'll repeat that. We're all going to get to compare some notes at some stage. That's not going to be very nice for some folks that their whole identity at the moment is a little bit off from their original intent. And that's a choice too. And I'm not knocking it. I'm a live and let live guy, but you got your original intent in place, or at least an intent, know the game you're in, and get clear on your position, how you're working the problem. Do you even know what the problem is in its entirety? Or you only have a partial part to it? Because if you're missing out a little bit of data, that could mean a whole different trajectory. And being able to run an effective strategy is going to be important. Absolutely. So this will essentially be a bit of a wrap up for part one of this conversation. I suppose I just wanted to set that up and get you guys to have a ponder about what you're watching is social contracts and social agreements break apart that you and I have wittingly or unwittingly co-signed. And as they go through their reckoning of being able to be seen for exactly as they are, do you want to just get into it and want to rip off heads? Or do you want to actually go, this here is the time for someone like you or someone that you know who would be very, very good at implementing a new domain of knowing or going about it, you being a supporting function and getting involved at a local level? What does that all look like? You know, even with educate, like I suppose a big one that's on right now is the health and pharmaceutical. Like, I love the enthusiasm where it's like, oh, just stop putting fluoride in the water, and then that will change everything. That's great. But do you know how the water system works in your city? Hmm? Do you know the pipe infrastructure? Do you know that there's some chemicals put in the water because of the water system? That's why in some parts of the world you can't drink the water. Why? Because the water is not treated, and the way that the water system is set up, well, it has all the things in it. So as much as it's all good and well to go, oh, we just need to stop putting fluoride in the water, and that will be the stop of many things, which is a good thing. But this is what I mean. There's many other conversations to go about that. Even in relation to, let's say, geoengineering. And I had this conversation about a week or two with somebody, and they hadn't heard the perspective I'm about to give you. Because when it comes to chemtrails and stuff, yeah, I'm not saying I know everything. I clearly do not. But I know what I know. But I also have had conversations with folks that know some serious shit. And in Australia in particular, we have a phased array radar system. And some of the stuff that is being sprayed in the sky has to do with some of that and some other things in relation to technology. It is not all about fucking killing you. People don't like to hear that, but it is. But in relation to cloud seeding, where it's like, oh, we just need to stop all of that. We know that it is very real. Yeah. But if you had a technology like HARP and it was utilized for the benefit of a community to be able to manage the weather where food is actually grown, and to have, let's say, a rain or a flood come through and clean a creek or a river system, would you be down for that? Managed correctly? These are some of the conversations that will begin to present themselves over the next period of time. As we know, there's been a lot used. I don't want to say against us, but it is being used for a very particular state of mind and state of strategy. Where some of that technology, if it was utilized in the application more often than not with its original intent, it'd be a bit different, wouldn't it? So I'm just going to leave you with that one, because that there builds out into many different arenas across the board. Across the board. Like even, and I can, this will be my last one, I promise, but it's a good one. AI. If you use AI as an extension of yourself, you are going to go places. But if you are utilizing it purely for your digital ID or purely just for content or those types of things, you're going to have a very difficult time and probably get left behind. But with AI, and I've mentioned this before, it's 100% fact. This thing here has profiled you to an extent that is in fucking sane. You know, I know that hello messenger, how are you today? How many times has you had a conversation with someone and then the ads pop up? Yeah. Some folks are still in that's law of attraction. It's like, no, the AI gods have got you good and proper. You know, you click on it and stuff like that. It's picking up on, you know, how you work. It's wild. If you're interested, go and check that out. I'm not going to get into that this evening. But let's say with AI, if you were to able to work with an AI, your own, let's say, bot, for instance, and we're really honest with it, and it was like, you know what, your best way of learning is this. So now the AI could be your perfect teacher or interface when it comes to learning or wanting to develop something. You know, I'm about to embark on something shortly when I have some more time in learning a language. I am going to utilize an AI component with that, but work with it for a period of time. So it's going to go, okay, the best way for you to learn this language would be this way. Let's go about this, which I already know. It's more in a conversational piece and me going through fucking a lot of things up. That's my way of learning. But that's what I mean. And I suppose there's a lot of fear that is out there, and rightly so, but there's elements, I suppose, that they have missed, that have not taken place, where other things have gone in and made a correction. And I'll mention this now with, let's say, the AI wars. Pay attention to what goes on with NVIDIA and their AI over the next period of time, because there is going to be a battle upon open source and closed network. That's what's kind of going on at the moment, isn't it? In an open source environment where everyone can see absolutely everything, are you going to be okay with that? Where everyone gets to see absolutely everything, even government spending. Okay, we have the technology for all of that. Yeah, everything to be accounted for and to be able to see it, and it gets out there very quickly. I'm not going to get into that at the moment. Maybe in a period of time I will, but you're going to co-sign to that. So that means lies, nefarious actions, and those components could nullify contracts in those components. So with what's going on in China with their social credit system, the technology is pretty impressive. It's just people utilizing it is for domination and control. But if it was opened up into an open source environment, wow, because that would also mean that, as what I've said, like, how cool would it be if all of a sudden there was how to make a hydrogen conversion kit for your car, and it was open sourced and put out there, and you had already developed an AI to be able to work with you so that you could know how to do it on your own car. Exciting. Hey, I want to go and do this. Is that stuff actually there available in an open source environment to be able to go about that? You know, this is getting out there, yeah, but I'm just throwing it on the table to give some context upon the opportunity that presents itself. Yeah. And then I just see Victoria saying, bro, the digital convergence freaks me out. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. But this is what I mean by utilizing AI as an extension of you rather than it being a part of you, because with that there, you're essentially still in control upon how you actually want to go about it. Because I know some folks that are going to be like, you know what, I'm going bush. Awesome. But would you utilize it to be able to assist you with creating a build with resources from that area to essentially set things up for you to have 3 or 4 acres and be self-sustained with power, with food, with the way that way that you collect your water and these types of things, and not being a part of the social contract or agreement that the government or that system has encroached on you? The answer to that would be yes. You know, there's other people that actually have some skill that can go out there and do that, but you know, they've done that for a lot of trial and error. So, you know, I'm just presenting these types of things because none of this is going away. It is front side, ready to go pop pop. And depending upon how you want to react, because reacting is still a choice, isn't it? Everything is a choice. And where is that choice coming from? Is it coming from the ego that sits upon the throne and the pseudo personality that has been created through programs, beliefs, and perceptions? Or can we take a break for a moment and go, hang on a moment, what's actually really going on here? Does this actually really affect me? Or is it another game being played that's hijacking my attention for me to actually fight ghosts? These are things to consider. So I'll have a read through with questions, and then I suppose I'll wrap it up. What's good, Nick, mate? How you going? Hopefully see you Sunday night in Magus Guild, buddy. Yeah, thanks. Haircut is good. Phil, g'day, mate. How you doing? Okay, Sophia 333. The Baileys from New Zealand have information regarding viruses. Can you actually catch something, or are you saying it's biological? So something in the water, air, food. So if I'm not going to get into that, but I've merely looked at it from the more recent times with some of the biotech components. There's enough folks speaking about that in detail right now, particularly when it comes to the Covical and what that was really all about. It started in Fort Detrick, moved its way through Michigan, through Canada, then some other components there. So, you know, this is what I mean. Even with what's going on in Ukraine with the biolabs over there, that's a massive story, massive. The data's out there about it. You've had people, we even had a top Russian general come out and do a whole presentation upon all of that. But somehow, those that are championing that conversation are ignoring that information. For them, it's, oh, that's just that's propaganda. They want you to think like that. It's like, well, at this time, all data should be thrown onto the table and at least be really, really looked at. So that's my spin on that. Lino, how are you? Uh, Only way is to be in your higher self, guided by one's own gut instinct, always looking within, not outside. So many noisy voices outside. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those noisy voices actually impact your internal dialogue as well. Because it's like whose voice are we speaking from? Are our beliefs our beliefs? Are the programs that we actually sit there and think that are running, are they our own? Or have we opted in? Big shit. John Toomey, how you go, mate? Thanks, Grant. We are going through an exponential learning experience. I'm seeing desperate parts coming together. We don't know what we don't know. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And that's a good kind of a good motto to have. If you accept that you don't know what you don't know, but you know what you do know in honesty, well, you're going to be able to have conversations, but also find those that have some subject matter expertise that are able to build out different reference points, put it on the table for you, and give you some different ways of perceiving it or understanding it. That's why, for me at the moment, what Dr. Jack Cruz is talking about, um, he has a very big story to tell, very, very big. That's very important. Seems to be not going anywhere inside the activist, truther, or researcher community. But anyways, Maria again. It helps to start doing more fasting as led by my inner standing. It strengthens me not only physically but in all levels. Sets one free from all the bullshit we have now in this fast advancing planet that is moving towards more enslavement, if only people. I hear what you're saying, but we're not moving into more enslavement. That there is not an empowered choice, is it? But let's be very, very real about something. This isn't liked out there. I've tried it a couple of times, but we can't even get along with ourselves. Therefore, we need to be managed. The social agreements and the social contracts that we give people authority to, and the social contract with the government is the constitution, even though they don't follow it. This is what I mean. There's a big growing up game to be had. And this is that psychological fallout perspective, because there are many folks that are living in adult bodies that are children, that can't be told anything because they know everything. And we're also at a funny circumstance of things where the internet, or social media in particular, has got a lot of people way too comfortable of just saying whatever they think they want to say because it's their truth. And if anybody says anything against that, that must mean that they're projecting and that they're triggered. It's a funny little game that we're in. And this is one of those social agreements that's beginning to break apart, that you're seeing people are like, oh, the woke agenda is falling apart. It is. But how much of that woke agenda has actually entered your own domain? How much of the content creator psychology talk of narcissist, codependent, share vulnerability, all the buzzwords, but when you ask someone to qualify their quantum, they can't, and they get offended. Like vulnerability at the moment, okay, fucking drive me insane, because it's like men need to lead with vulnerability. It's like, okay, do you want to go in a dictionary and actually understand what vulnerability really means? Go check that out. Oh, but it doesn't mean that. Well, words have meanings. Words have meanings. Yeah. So you're going to utilize a word now that has one meaning, but you're going to associate it with a different meaning to it. And even though that someone would question that very word and the essence of it, and you're utilizing it from a place of authority, that now they become the bad guy, that they're all the rest of the script gets run. I find that interesting, and this is across the board at the moment. I mean, this is what this game is really about. This fifth generational warfare that we've all been subject to, and how one actually wants to go about it is fascinating. Okay, a couple more here. All right, Jack Cruz or Dr. Jack Cruz, but yeah, Dr. Jack Cruz. You have mentioned Jim Cruz before, just didn't know which one you referred to. Yeah, Dr. Jack Cruz, go check him out. Mr. Kyle, how you going, mate? You and I need to have a chat over the next couple of days. I like the idea of legends rising up in tough times. I've been delving into Rudolf Steiner's prophecy of these times and the increase in supernatural abilities, seeing heaps more of this in my feeds lately, like telekinesis and clairvoyance. Absolutely, my man. I suppose the language I'm using at the moment is the psychotechnologies. But as you know more than most, mate, there's some disciplines and there's some breaking apart upon how we actually perceive reality before those innate technologies come online, and where we're actually utilizing them from. Yeah, it's probably a conversation I'm going to build out over the next period of time, because there seems to be a lot of folks at the moment utilizing lesser magic, which is bitchcraft. All right. Marie, thank you for this live. Things you did helps to know there are other souls in alignment with. The only thing I find Facebook useful for, blessings from a soul passing through this planet. I absolutely love. Kudos to you as well. And on a lasting note, I suppose I better give myself a plug, because it's been a considerable amount of time. I have taken a step back and got things pretty clear within myself upon what I'm looking to do over the next period of time. So the mentoring slots have opened up. I haven't been doing it for a while. Reasons for that is some integration and some reimagining of going back to where I started and moving through. So if that there has of any interest of you, or I can help you out, hit me up. Also over the next period of time as well, I'm going to open up to be doing some more advisory and consulting, particularly in the project and business space. Because there's been a lot of conversations I've had over the last few years where there's some folks that have some really brilliant ideas, and even some new dreaming visions upon how they actually want to move forward and progress with that. So I can definitely help with that with my background. And then comes into Magus, which has been a long time coming. Really, it's been quite the experience. That conversation for another period of time, but the doors are now open for the next round of Man of Knowledge. You'll see some content about that over the next few days. Definitely take me up on the early bird offer. And then I'll do a video next week about Paladin Mastermind. That there is for men who are players. Kyle, you're already in on that one, mate. That are very serious about where they're at, where they want to go to, and the games that they want to play in over the next period of time. There is a prerequisite for that mastermind. It isn't a free for all. So I'll be having more conversations with that, because it really has to do with re-engaging into a new variation of the solar world in a masculine frame, where one comes to the ultimate individuated state of knowing themselves, their skill sets, and being able to have a band of brothers around, and the shade of grey that they're comfortable in, and being able to execute their dreaming vision. So, yeah, that will be all for this evening. We will rendezvous next week, legends. And spend your give a fuck bucks wisely. If you're on Facebook, which we're on today, there is a feature. It's in X up the top. You can hit X, and then there's a thing that says snooze for 30 days. And give it a run. Yeah. Because if you've got the same shit churning in your news feed, you have to ask yourself the question, yeah, what is this actually doing for me? 1, 2, is this somebody that is screaming like a child for attention? 2, 3, is this somebody just fighting ghosts? See things as they are. Then you're actually in the authority to make an empowered choice. And even your reaction is a choice. But where is that choice actually coming from? So on that note, lots of love and respect. It's fucking game time, legends. Get at it. Ciao.